When we say a movie made for adults, the content that comes to mind is the explicit variety, what may require blurring or being cut for cable. However, there is a special kind of story, and especially a kind of filmmaking that knows its audience is thoughtful, mature, and willing to accept the nuances of a complicated situation. Because the movie trusts us to keep up with it and understand it, it's able to tackle much more subtle issues than heroes and villains, and able to present a worldview both more fascinating and more realistic than a typical Hollywood narrative. A great example is the movie Norma Ray, which is one of my all-time favorites. The story centers around a young mother and textile worker trying to start a union at the cotton mill where she and her whole community work. A little more than halfway into the movie, the movement is not doing well. Norma is being shunned for her disruptive behavior, and most momentum seems lost. Then, while working on the floor, her father asks to take a break, and the foreman denies him. Seconds later, he grips his arm, falls to the ground, and has a heart attack. The next shot is the casket being lowered into the ground. Then, the next shot is the makeshift union office, bustling and crowded with workers from the mill. That's all we need. We don't need someone to come up to Norma and tell her how important her father was to the community, and how his death reinvigorates the demand for better working conditions. We know all that already, and the way it's filmed shows more truth in the characters' actions than if someone had to monologue to explain to the audience what's happening. In The Verdict, Frank Galvin is a washed-up attorney living in Boston. Once a very promising lawyer, he was fired from his firm for jury tampering, and now makes ends meet by ambulance chasing, ping-ponging between the funeral parlor and the bar across the street, wasting away the time handing grieving widows his business card. As a favor from a friend, he's given a medical malpractice case, which is all but guaranteed to settle for a sizable amount, ensuring a solid income for Frank. With his practice on the brink of collapsing and his alcoholism threatening to consume his life, it seems like a necessity for Frank to settle in the hopes of rebuilding his once good name. The case is this. A young woman about to give birth was given an anesthetic. Something went wrong and she choked on her own vomit, depriving her of oxygen. The incident left her comatose and killed her baby. The woman's sister and her husband want to settle very much, as it would allow them to provide decent and humane care for the comatose woman, while they're able to take a better-paying job out of state. The hospital, a specifically Catholic one where the incident took place, also wants to settle out of court to avoid any scent of scandal, offering a sizable sum. However, something has happened to Frank. While visiting the woman and photographing her for evidence, Frank has a profound and monumental change of heart. He is deeply affected by what transpired, and his resolve to fight, buried under so many years of failure and self-inflicted despair, comes out again. Without even consulting his clients, Frank refuses to settle and demands to go to court. With the odds completely stacked against him, from disappearing witnesses to a biased judge, not to mention the Goliath that is the opposing counsel, Frank is determined to advocate for his client's justice, and in the process may find redemption for himself. The movie, directed by Sidney Lumet, came out in 1982, but feels as current as if it were released today. The film specifically demonstrates how powerful institutions use the threat of legal fees to incentivize shutting up, leaving normal people who don't have the infinite means to defend themselves vulnerable and powerless. The plaintiffs are desperate to settle because they don't have the money to take care of their family if they lose. The story is rich in characters trampled on and left behind by the juggernauts of institutions, where the only one able to speak out is one of their own kind, a victim of scapegoating. The Verdict is a smart and mature movie. It has plenty of trust in its audience to follow the language of film, and it doesn't ever over-explain. Big, jaw-dropping discoveries happen in the courtroom, but they are never played for hysteria. One of the most damning pieces of evidence is reacted to not with confusion or yelling or commotion, but with quiet horror at the gravity of the truth. It is sophisticated, timeless, and well-crafted, from the bones of its script to its subtle visual style. There's a wonderful wintry glow to everything, from snow on the ground, Christmas lights, and that famous icy brilliant blue of Paul Newman's eyes. There are all the familiar sounds of a legal drama, wood paneling and creaking stairs and thick law volumes to flip through. It seems trite to say Paul Newman is a great actor, perhaps one of the best ever, but in a career that includes several icons of American cinema, this is still one of his best. James Mason, in one of his last films, is mesmerizing and scene-stealing as opposing counsel Ed Concannon. David Mamet wrote the script, and in one of his original drafts, the movie ended after the jury left for deliberation, meaning there was no definite verdict. Mamet believed the ending the producers wanted was old-fashioned and simple, but I'm glad we got the ending this movie has. It's one thing to ask the questions this movie does concerning power, morality, and our legal system, and it's another thing entirely to answer them. I think it's wonderful that this movie chooses something to declare, rather than leave it up for us to guess. What we get to discuss after we watch the film, then, is not what we think might have happened, but whether or not we believe in it. Thank you for watching.
No, he never returned, and his fate is still unlearned. He may ride forever 'neath the streets of Boston. He's the man who never